The vibration of the phone against the nightstand wood was a drill sound that bored directly into my skull. It was exactly 2 a.m. I did not need to look at the screen to know who it was or what it meant. Nobody calls at 2 a.m. to say they love you. Nobody calls at 2 a.m. to tell you that you won the lottery. In my life, the phone only rings at this hour when the illusion of the perfect suburban family cracks and they need the janitor to come sweep up the shards. I am the janitor. My name is Harper. I fumbled for the device in the dark. The glowing screen illuminated the messy stack of financial reports I had been reviewing until midnight. The caller ID read Mom. Of course it was Mom. I swiped answer and pressed the phone to my ear. I did not say hello. I knew better than to waste breath. Harper, get here now. Her voice was a high, thin wire of panic that instantly tightened my chest. It is Tanner, the police. I sat up and rubbed the grit from my eyes. My heart did not pound. It used to pound when I was 22 years old and still believed their crises were accidental tragedies. Now at 32 years old, my heart just sank like a stone dropped into a deep, cold well. Which station? I asked. My voice was flat. The 4th precinct, the one near the country club. Oh God, Harper, they have him in handcuffs. You have to fix this. You have to come now. Do not be slow. Do not make us wait. The line went dead. No please, no thank you. Just a demand and a disconnection. I threw the covers off. The air in my 1-bedroom apartment was cold. I pulled on a pair of sweatpants and a hoodie. I did not bother with makeup. I grabbed my wallet, which felt heavier than it should. It contained the credit card that was about to bleed for people who would not even offer me a glass of water if I was dying of thirst. I walked out to my car. It was a 6-year-old sedan with a dent in the rear bumper and a heater that rattled when the temperature dropped below 40 degrees. I turned the key and the engine groaned before catching. I backed out of my parking spot and headed toward the suburbs where the lawns were manicured and the secrets were buried under layers of expensive mulch. The drive took 30 minutes. The roads were empty. The streetlights flickered overhead like strobe lights in a horror movie. I spent the drive doing mental math. It was the middle of the month. My paycheck had just cleared. I had set aside $2,000 for my savings account because I was trying to buy my own freedom. I knew with a sickening certainty that the money was gone. It was already spent before I even reached the police station. The 4th precinct was a brick building that smelled of stale coffee and industrial floor cleaner. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a headache-inducing frequency. I walked through the double doors and saw them immediately. They looked like a tableau of misunderstood aristocracy. My father, Gary, was sitting on a plastic bench with his head in his hands. He looked small and defeated. My mother, Brenda, was pacing back and forth in a cashmere coat that cost more than my first car. And there was Tanner. My brother sat on the bench next to Dad. He was 28 years old, but he sat with the slouch of a petulant teenager. He was wearing a designer leather jacket and jeans that were distressed by hand in Italy. His hair was perfectly styled, despite the fact that he had apparently been arrested. Brenda saw me, and her face twisted. It was not relief. It was annoyance. Finally, she snapped. She marched toward me, and the click of her heels on the linoleum echoed through the waiting room. "We have been waiting for 20 minutes, Harper. What took you so long?" "I drove the speed limit, Mom," I said. "What happened?" Brenda waved her hand dismissively. "It is a misunderstanding. A complete misunderstanding. Tanner was just having a little fun at the Sapphire Lounge. Some jealous police officer decided to target him because of the car. They said he was racing. Can you believe that? Racing. In a residential zone. It is ridiculous. They just saw a successful young man in a nice car and wanted to bring him down." I looked at Tanner. He refused to meet my eyes. He was staring at his phone, which the police had apparently returned to him. "The car," I said. "Is the car impounded?" Brenda scoffed. "Of course it is impounded. That is why you are here. We need bail money and we need to get the vehicle out. Do you have your card?" She did not ask if I was okay. She did not ask how my week was. She asked for the plastic rectangle that kept their world spinning. I walked to the desk sergeant. He was a man with tired eyes who looked like he had seen this scene 1,000 times. Rich kid messes up. Sister cleans up. "Bail is set at $5,000 for reckless endangerment and disorderly conduct," he said, "plus impound fees." I nodded. I pulled out the card. My hand did not shake, but my stomach churned. $5,000. That was 3 months of rent for me. That was the vacation I had been planning for 2 years and kept postponing. That was my freedom dissolving into a receipt printed on thermal paper. I signed the slip. The sergeant handed me a release form. When I turned back to the family, the transaction was done. Tanner stood up and stretched. He looked bored. "Let us go," he said. "This place smells like poor people." We walked out into the chilly night air. The impound lot was around the back. I retrieved the keys to the SUV from the clerk. It was a massive black beast of a vehicle with leather seats and a sound system that could shatter windows. I walked over to Tanner and held out the keys. "You are not driving," I said. "You are suspended until we figure this out. I will drive the SUV to your house. You ride with Mom and Dad." Brenda snatched the keys from my hand before I could blink. She threw them hard against my chest. The metal bit into my skin through the hoodie. "Do not be ridiculous, Harper," she hissed. Her eyes were wild. "He has had a traumatic night. He needs his car. It is his safe space. You are always so controlling. This is why you are alone." I stood there stunned by the violence of the motion. The keys clattered to the asphalt. "He was arrested for racing Mom," I said. "He was going 90 in a 30 zone. I just paid $5,000 to get him out. And you will hold that over our heads forever, won't you?" Brenda shouted. Her voice echoed in the empty parking lot. "You love this. You love seeing him down. You are jealous." "Jealous," I repeated. "Yes. Jealous. Look at him. He has charisma. He has potential. He is going places. And you are just bitter. You show up here in your sweatpants with no makeup, looking like a disaster, and you try to lecture him." She stepped closer to me. Her perfume was cloying and expensive. "You are so slow, Harper. You are slow to get here. You are slow to help. You are slow to succeed. Why can you not be like Tanner? Why can you not handle things smoothly? He has a brand to maintain. He has an image. You are just making everything messy." I looked at Tanner. He was leaning against my father's sedan, scrolling through Instagram. He did not look up. He did not defend me. He did not say thank you for the $5,000. I picked up the keys from the ground. The metal was cold. "Fine," I said. "He can drive, but if he gets stopped again, do not call me." Brenda laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "We called you because you are the only one with no life, Harper. Do not flatter yourself." She turned and marched toward the sedan. Tanner followed her without a word. They got into their cars. Tanner into the SUV, Mom and Dad into the sedan. I watched the taillights fade into the distance. I stood alone in the police station parking lot at 3 in the morning. The wind cut through my thin clothes. I walked to my beat-up car and sat in the driver's seat. I did not start the engine immediately. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. A laugh bubbled up in my throat. It was dry and devoid of humor. "Why can you not be successful like Tanner?" she had asked. The irony was so thick I could taste it like blood in my mouth. Successful. Let us talk about Tanner's success. Tanner has not held a job in 3 years, not a single day of employment. He calls himself an influencer. He calls himself a streamer. He tells the neighbors he is in digital marketing. The truth is that Tanner sits in his bedroom in the basement of the house I pay for and plays video games for 12 hours a day. He has 112 viewers on a good day. He makes $0. Zero. That leather jacket he was wearing tonight cost $2,000. I paid for it. The distressed jeans cost $600. I paid for them. The haircut cost $150. I paid for it. The SUV he was racing, the one Brenda calls his safe space. The lease is in my name. The monthly payment is $980. It is drafted directly from my checking account on the 1st of every month. I have never driven it. I pay for the premium gas he puts in it. I pay for the insurance, which is astronomical because he has 3 speeding tickets on his record. And the house. The beautiful colonial house in the suburbs with the wraparound porch and the granite countertops. The house where Brenda hosts her book club and brags about her wonderful children. I pay the mortgage. Every single month for the last 4 years. $3,200. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the headrest. In the eyes of the world, I am Harper, the disappointing daughter, the one who drives a dented car, the one who brings a packed lunch to work every day, the one who wears clothes from the clearance rack and dyes her own hair to save money. My family tells everyone I am broke. They make jokes about it at Thanksgiving. Harper is so stingy, they say. She counts every penny. She never treats herself. She is a miser. They do not know. The neighbors do not know. The church group does not know. Tanner's few friends do not know. They see Tanner in the Porsche Cayenne and they think he is a tycoon. They see Brenda in her Hermes scarf and think Gary is a successful consultant. Gary has not consulted on anything since 2019. He retired early because his back hurt. He spends his days watching golf on a 70-inch television that I paid for. I am the ghost in the machine. I am the battery that powers their entire existence, and they hate me for it. They hate me because they need me. They hate me because every time they look at me, they are reminded that their lifestyle is a lie. So they attack me. They call me slow. They call me messy. They project their own failures onto me so they can sleep at night in the beds that I bought. I started the car. The engine rattled. The check engine light winked at me from the dashboard. I could not afford to fix it this month. I had just spent my repair money on bail. I drove out of the lot and headed toward the highway. The Chicago suburbs were quiet. It was the hour when the illusion was strongest. In the dark, you could not see the peeling paint on the houses that people could not afford to maintain. You could not see the stack of overdue bills on the kitchen counters. You could not see the desperate quiet of people drowning in debt to keep up appearances. My family was the perfect example of the American dream gone wrong. They believed they deserved the best simply because they existed. They believed that looking rich was more important than being solvent. And I was the enabler. I admitted it to myself as I merged onto the interstate. I was part of the problem. For years, I had told myself I was being a good daughter. I was helping. I was keeping the family together. I was preventing them from being homeless. But tonight felt different. The way the keys had hit my chest, the look of pure disdain on Brenda's face, the way Tanner had looked at me like I was a servant who had taken too long to bring his dinner. Something had shifted. The credit card felt heavy in my pocket, not because of the debt, but because of the weight of the lie. I was not broke. I was actually a chief financial officer for a mid-sized logistics firm. I made a salary that put me in the top 10% of earners for my age bracket. I should have been driving a luxury car. I should have been living in a penthouse downtown. I should have been traveling to Europe and drinking wine that did not come from a box. Instead, I was funding a reality show starring my family where I was not even allowed to be in the cast. I looked at the digital clock on the dashboard. 3:45 in the morning. In 4 hours, I had to be at work. I had to lead a meeting about a merger that was worth $20 million. I had to be sharp. I had to be professional. I had to be the adult. My mother asked why I could not be successful like Tanner. I let out a breath that fogged up the windshield. "Because, Mom," I whispered to the empty car, "if I was successful like Tanner, we would all be living under a bridge." I exited the highway and turned toward my apartment complex. It was a modest building, safe but plain. My apartment was small. The furniture was from IKEA. I parked the car and walked up the 3 flights of stairs. My legs felt like lead. I walked into my kitchen and opened the refrigerator. It was almost empty. A carton of milk, a half-eaten apple, a container of yogurt. I poured a glass of water and drank it standing over the sink. $5,000. I thought about the list of things I needed. My winter coat had a hole in the pocket. My laptop was 5 years old and overheating. I needed a root canal on my back molar that I had been putting off. All of that was gone now, swallowed by the black hole of the 4th precinct. I walked into my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Brenda. The text read, "Do not forget to transfer the mortgage money tomorrow. It is the 15th. Also, Tanner needs money for detailing the car. The police dusted it for prints and it is a mess. Do not be late. No thank you, no apology, just an invoice." I stared at the screen. The blue light illuminated the room. I did not reply. For the first time in 10 years, I did not immediately open my banking app. I did not schedule the transfer. I just set the phone face down on the nightstand. I lay back on the pillows and stared at the ceiling. The crack in the plaster above my head looked like a lightning bolt. "You are slow, Harper," she had said. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been slow. I had been slow to realize that I was being used. I had been slow to understand that love is not a transaction. I had been slow to see that my family did not see me as a person, but as a resource. But even the slowest person eventually crosses the finish line. I closed my eyes. I needed 3 hours of sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a very long day. And for the first time, I wondered what would happen if the Bank of Harper simply failed to open for business. The thought terrified me. It went against every instinct I had developed since I was 16 years old and left in the woods. But as I drifted off to sleep, the terror mixed with something else, something cold and hard and sharp. It felt like the weight of a key hitting a chest. It felt like the beginning of the end. The darkness of my bedroom was not empty. It was filled with the phantom smell of pine needles and gasoline. I tried to close my eyes, but the ceiling fan spun overhead like the blades of a helicopter. It chopped the silence into rhythmic slices that matched the pounding of my blood. My body was safe in a temperature-controlled apartment in Chicago, but my mind was drifting. It was sliding backward down a slope of time to the place where the cold lived permanently in my bones. 16 years old. The number was a jagged scar in my memory. I was 16 years old when I learned exactly what I was worth to the people who created me. It was supposed to be a family bonding trip. That was what Gary called it. A week in the Rocky Mountains to reconnect, to build character, to escape the pressures of the suburbs. I remember sitting in the back seat of the old station wagon next to Tanner. He was 12 years old then and playing a handheld video game that beeped incessantly. He complained about the lack of signal. He complained about the snacks. He complained that the sun was too bright. Brenda fed him juice boxes and told him he was brave for enduring the wilderness. I sat in silence. I watched the trees blur past the window and felt a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. I knew that in the calculus of our family, my comfort was the variable that could always be subtracted to balance the equation. We set up camp in a remote clearing miles from the main trail. The air was thin and crisp. The sun dipped below the peaks, and the temperature plummeted. The argument started over firewood. It always started over something small. I had gathered a pile of sticks from the edge of the clearing. Brenda looked at them with a sneer that curled her lip like a burning piece of paper. "This is damp junk, Harper," she said. Her voice carried over the wind. "It will just smoke. Go get real wood. Go into the trees and find the dry branches." "It is getting dark, Mom," I said. "The sun is gone. I do not have a flashlight. Do not talk back to me," she snapped. "You are 16 years old. You are not a baby. Stop being so lazy and useless. If you want to eat a warm meal, you will contribute." She shoved something into my hand. It was cold and heavy, a cheap multi-tool with a dull blade and a pair of pliers that barely worked. "Go," she ordered, "and do not come back until you have an armful of dry cedar." I looked at Gary. He was busy pumping the gas stove. He did not look up. He never looked up. I looked at Tanner. He was already inside the tent, wrapped in a sleeping bag. I turned and walked into the tree line. The forest was a wall of shadow. I walked for 10 minutes, then 20. I found dry wood and gathered it against my chest. The bark scratched my arms. The darkness was absolute. I turned around to retrace my steps. I walked toward where the fire should have been. I walked toward the sound of voices, but there were no voices. When I broke through the brush back into the clearing, the silence hit me harder than a physical blow. The station wagon was gone, the tents were gone, the stove was gone. The only thing left was the circle of stones where the fire was supposed to be and my backpack lying in the dirt like a discarded wrapper. I stood there, a 16-year-old girl holding a bundle of dead wood in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. My brain refused to process the visual data. It insisted that this was a mistake. They had moved the car. They were playing a hide-and-seek game. They were just around the bend. Then I heard the echo of an engine fading down the gravel road miles away. I dropped the wood. It clattered against the stones. I walked to my backpack. Attached to the strap was a sticky note. The yellow paper fluttered in the wind. I shined the weak light of my dying phone screen on it. The handwriting was Brenda's, sharp and angular. The note read, "If she wants to survive, she will figure it out. Do not coddle her." I read it twice, then 3 times. The words did not make sense. Parents do not leave their teenage daughters in the wilderness because of damp firewood. Parents do not drive away and leave a child to die of exposure because she talked back. But my parents did. The first night was not fear. It was denial. I sat against a tree with my knees pulled to my chest and waited for the headlights to sweep back across the clearing. I told myself it was a lesson, a cruel, twisted lesson about obedience. They would be back in an hour. They would be back by midnight. They would be back before the frost settled on my eyelashes. They did not come back. The cold was a living thing. It had teeth. It gnawed at my fingers and toes. I put on every piece of clothing I had in my backpack, which amounted to 2 t-shirts and a thin hoodie. I wrapped myself in a plastic rain poncho. I shivered so hard my muscles ached. The noises of the forest were amplified by the terror. A twig snapping sounded like a gunshot. The rustle of leaves sounded like a predator stalking its prey. I clutched the cheap multi-tool in my frozen hand, a weapon that could not cut a rope, let alone defend me against a bear or a mountain lion. By the second day, the denial had frozen into a hard, clear diamond of realization. They were not coming back. The sun rose gray and indifferent. I was thirsty. I was hungry. But mostly, I was hollowed out by the knowledge that I was disposable. I walked. I did not know where I was going, but I knew that staying in the clearing was death. I followed the slope of the land downward. Gravity was my only map. I drank from a stream that made my teeth ache. I ate the 2 granola bars I found in the bottom of my bag. I rationed them like gold. I walked until my feet blistered and bled inside my sneakers. I walked until the sun went down again, and I had to spend another night shivering in the dirt. 48 hours. That is 2,880 minutes. For every single one of those minutes, I thought about Tanner warm in his bed. I thought about Brenda drinking her coffee. I thought about Gary watching his golf. They were existing in a world where I had ceased to be. And the world kept turning. On the morning of the 3rd day, I found the road. I flagged down a park ranger truck. The ranger was a man with a gray mustache and kind eyes. When he saw me stumbling out of the tree line, he stopped the truck and ran to me. He wrapped me in a blanket that smelled of wool and tobacco. He gave me water. He asked me what happened. "My parents," I croaked. My voice was a ruined thing. We got separated. He drove me to the station. He sat me down in a chair and picked up the phone. "What is their number, honey?" he asked. "We need to let them know you are safe. They must be worried sick. We have not had any missing person reports filed, but maybe they called the sheriff instead of us." I gave him the number. I sat there and listened to the one-sided conversation. I watched the ranger's face change. It went from concern to confusion and then to a cold professional anger. "Yes, ma'am," he said into the receiver. "We have her here. No, ma'am, she is dehydrated, but she is alive." "Yes, I understand." "No, ma'am, that is not discipline. That is endangerment." He hung up the phone slowly. He looked at me with a pity that burned worse than the frostbite. "Your mother says they are at home," he said softly. "She says you ran off. She says they thought you needed time to cool down. Home." They were 4 hours away. They had driven home. They had unpacked the car. They had slept in their beds. They had eaten meals. They had showered. They had left me for dead and then gone home to watch television. The ride home with my aunt who came to pick me up was a blur. But the re-entry into the house was crystal clear. I walked into the living room 3 days later. Brenda was sitting on the sofa reading a magazine. Gary was polishing his shoes. Brenda looked up. She did not run to hug me. She did not cry. She looked annoyed. "Well," she said, "look who decided to come back. Did you learn your lesson, Harper? Did you learn that you cannot just be disrespectful and expect us to tolerate it?" I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had birthed me and then discarded me like a wrapper. And in that moment, the 16-year-old girl died. Something inside me hardened. It calcified into a shield that nothing could penetrate. I realized then that love in this house was not a right. It was a transaction. It was a commodity. If I was useful, I was allowed to stay. If I was a burden, I would be left in the snow. If I wanted to survive, I had to be indispensable. I had to be the one who brought the firewood. I had to be the one who paid the bills. I had to be the one who cleaned the mess. I looked at my hands in the dark of my apartment. They were shaking. That was the lesson of the woods. Money is safety. Money is the only reason they keep me around. If I stop paying, I am back in the clearing. If I stop solving their problems, I am back in the cold. I became a chief financial officer, not because I loved finance. I became a CFO because I needed to buy my place at the table. I needed to build a wall of cash so high that they could never drag me out to the forest again. I pay the mortgage so I have a roof. I pay the car lease so I have a ride. I pay the bail so I have a family. It is a sick, twisted economy. I am the sole investor in a failing company called the family, and the return on investment is zero. But tonight at the police station, Brenda had thrown the keys at me. She had looked at me with that same sneer she used when I brought back the damp wood. "You are slow, Harper." The words echoed in the bedroom. The fear that had driven me for 15 years was shifting. It was no longer the fear of being left behind. It was the fear of wasting $1 more on people who would watch me freeze to death and complain that I shivered too loudly. I rolled over and pulled the duvet up to my chin. The phantom smell of pine needles faded, but the cold remained. The 16-year-old girl was whispering to me from the back of my mind. She was saying, "Stop." She was saying, "Let them freeze." She was saying, "You have the map now, Harper. You have the water. You have the gear. You do not need them to survive the woods. They need you, and winter is coming for them." 2 months after the night at the police station, the silence between my family and me had settled into a cold, uncomfortable truce. I paid the bills. They cashed the checks. We did not speak of the bail money or the insults in the parking lot. We existed in a state of suspended animation where money was the only language we shared. Then came my father's 60th birthday. It was a milestone event. Brenda had been planning it for months. She wanted a dinner party at the house. She wanted expensive steaks. She wanted vintage wine. She wanted the image of a perfect, successful family gathering to post on social media. I agreed to come. I agreed because despite the 16-year-old girl inside me screaming to run, I still possessed a foolish hope. I hoped that 60 years might bring wisdom. I hoped that maybe for one night we could just be normal. I also had no choice but to bring my work with me. I was in the middle of the biggest merger of my career, Project Helios. It was a $20 million acquisition that involved merging 2 mid-sized logistics firms into a regional powerhouse. I was the lead architect of the financial integration. My laptop held the only current copy of the master spreadsheet. It was a complex beast of formulas and projections that I had spent 300 hours building. The deadline for the final review was Monday morning. I arrived at the house on a Saturday afternoon. The lawn was freshly cut. The windows gleamed. I parked my dented sedan behind Tanner's pristine SUV and felt the familiar tightening in my gut. I walked in carrying 2 bags. One contained 4 dry-aged ribeye steaks that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The other contained my laptop. Brenda met me at the door. She looked flushed and frantic. "You are late," she said. She did not say hello. "The butcher closes in an hour and we forgot the wine." I handed her the steaks. "Happy birthday to Dad," I said. She peered into the bag. "Good. You got the thick ones. Now listen, we need 3 bottles of Cabernet, the good stuff Harper, not that cheap vinegar you drink at your apartment. And we need a cake. The bakery said they lost our order, so you need to go to the French patisserie across town and see what they have." I sighed. I had just driven 45 minutes. I had work to do. "Mom," I said, "I have a deadline. I need to finish some projections for Monday. Can Tanner not go?" Brenda laughed. "Tanner is busy. He is setting up the playlist for the party. He is the DJ. It is very stressful work curating a vibe, Harper. You would not understand. Just go. Be useful for once. Be useful." The mantra of my existence. I carried my laptop bag upstairs to the guest room. I set it on the small desk in the corner. I opened it to check the file one last time. Project Helios. The spreadsheet glowed on the screen with its thousands of rows of data. It was beautiful. It was my ticket to a promotion. It was my ticket to freedom. I saved the file. I closed the lid. I did not lock the door because this was my parents' house, and I was naive enough to think that privacy was a concept they understood. I went back downstairs. I got back in my car. I drove across town to the wine shop and the bakery. I spent $300 on wine and another $80 on a cake that looked like a piece of art. I was gone for 90 minutes. When I pulled back into the driveway, the sun was beginning to set. The house looked warm and inviting from the outside. The golden light spilled from the windows. I walked in carrying the wine and the cake. The house was loud. I could hear shouting coming from the living room. It was not the sound of a party. It was the sound of combat. Die. Just die, you loser. Go left. No, you idiot. It was Tanner. I walked into the living room and froze. The cake box nearly slipped from my fingers. Tanner was sprawled on the couch. He was wearing a headset. He was screaming into a microphone. And on his lap sat my laptop, my $3,000 workstation, the machine that held Project Helios. He was pounding on the keys with a violence that made me flinch. On the screen was not my spreadsheet. It was a high-definition first-person shooter game. The fans of the laptop were screaming like jet engines trying to keep up with the graphical demand. And on the coffee table next to him was an open can of neon green soda. "Tanner," I said. My voice was low and dangerous. He did not hear me. He smashed the spacebar with his fist. "Lag," he screamed. "Why is this piece of junk lagging?" I dropped the cake on the side table and lunged forward. "Tanner, what are you doing?" He jumped. His knee hit the coffee table. The can of soda wobbled. Time seemed to slow down. I watched the green liquid arc through the air. It looked like toxic sludge. It splashed directly onto the open keyboard of my laptop. "No!" I screamed. The liquid sizzled as it hit the hot components. The screen flickered. A web of static shot across the image of the game. Then it went black. Tanner ripped off his headset and glared at me. "Look what you made me do," he yelled. "You made me lose the match." I was in the top 10. I grabbed the laptop. Sticky liquid poured out of the side ports. It dripped onto my shoes. The smell of heated sugar and frying electronics filled the air. "You are on my computer," I whispered. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the device. "Why are you on my computer? Mine was updating," he said. He wiped his hands on his jeans. "I just needed to play a quick match. Yours was sitting there. I figured a CFO would have a rig that could handle a simple game, but this thing is trash. It lagged so hard I missed the kill shot." "You guessed my password," I said. "It was your birthday." He scoffed. "You are so predictable, Harper." I tried to turn it on. Nothing. The power light was dead, Project Helios. I looked at Tanner. The entitlement on his face was absolute. He did not care about the machine. He cared about his game. "You destroyed it," I said. My voice rose to a shriek. "You destroyed my work. I have a merger on Monday. The only copy of the file was on this drive." "Relax," he rolled his eyes. "It is just some typing. You can redo it. Do not be such a drama queen." I lunged at him. I did not think. I just wanted to wipe that smirk off his face. Brenda and Gary ran into the room. Brenda stepped between us. "Harper," she shouted. "What is wrong with you? You are acting like a maniac. He destroyed my laptop." I yelled. I held up the dripping machine. He hacked into it. He installed a game. He poured soda on it. "Mom, this is my career. This is a $20 million project. It is gone." Gary looked at the laptop and then at Tanner. "It was an accident," Gary said. He shrugged. He spilled a drink. "It happens. Why did you leave it out if it was so important?" "I left it in my room," I screamed. He went into my room. "He was stressed, Harper," Brenda said. She put a hand on Tanner's shoulder. "He has been having a hard time finding a job. He needed to blow off some steam. He just borrowed it. Siblings share. That is what families do. He deleted my files," I said. I felt tears pricking my eyes, not tears of sadness, but tears of pure, unadulterated rage. Tanner shrugged. I had to clear some space. The drive was full of boring spreadsheets. I thought they were just old homework or something. I deleted a few folders to make the game run smoother. I did not think you would mind. You deleted the folders, I whispered. Yeah, he said, just the big ones. I looked at them, the three of them standing there, the united front of incompetence. You just cost me my job, I said. Oh, stop it, Brenda snapped. You are always so dramatic. You will not lose your job over a few deleted files. You are smart. You will figure it out. Just type it up again. Sit down and do it now if it is so urgent. But do not ruin your father's birthday dinner with this negativity. We have guests coming in 20 minutes. Just type it up again. 300 hours of work. Complex formulas. Legal data. I looked at the cake I had bought. I looked at the wine. I looked at the laptop that was currently dripping green sludge onto her expensive Persian rug. I am leaving, I said. What? Gary asked. You cannot leave. We have stakes. We have a party. I have to go to an emergency data recovery center, I said. I have to pray that the drive is not fried. And then I have to spend the next 48 hours rebuilding a financial model from memory. You are selfish, Brenda hissed. Her eyes narrowed. You are choosing a computer over your father. You are trying to make this about you. You always do this. You have to be the victim. I walked to the door. I did not look back. I left the stakes. I left the wine. I left the cake. I drove 80 miles an hour back to the city. I found a 24-hour tech shop that charged me $500 just to look at the machine. The technician was a kid with blue hair. He looked at the motherboard and whistled. This is toast, lady, he said. The sugar caramelized on the circuits. The logic board is fried. The hard drive? I asked. My hands were gripping the counter. He pulled the drive out. He plugged it into a dock. He typed for a few minutes. I can pull some raw data, he said, but the file structure is gone. The user deleted the root directories before the crash. It is just fragments. You are going to have to piece it together manually. I went home. I pulled out my old college laptop, which ran so slow it took 5 minutes to boot up. I made a pot of coffee. I started working at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. I worked through the night. I worked through Sunday morning. I worked through Sunday night. I did not sleep. I did not eat. I drank coffee until my hands shook so bad I could barely hit the keys. I rebuilt the model cell by cell. I went through my emails to find old versions. I reconstructed the logic from memory. I hallucinated. By Monday morning at 4 o'clock, the numbers on the screen were dancing. But I finished. I saved the file. I emailed it to my boss. I collapsed on the floor of my living room. I was still wearing the clothes I had worn to the birthday party. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Brenda. Thanks for ruining the night, Harper. Dad was very hurt that you left. The cake was dry. We expected better from you. Hope your little computer game was worth it. I laughed. I lay on the floor and laughed until I choked. My little computer game. She thought I was the one playing. She did not realize that the game had changed. I was done playing defense. I was done being the goalie who took the shots to the face so they could celebrate the win. Tanner wanted to play games. Fine. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion take me. When I woke up, I was going to change the rules. 3 months passed. The silence between my family and me was a heavy curtain that no one wanted to pull back. I continued to pay the bills. The mortgage transfer left my account on the 1st. The car lease payment left on the 5th. The credit card bill was auto-paid on the 15th. I was a ghost who haunted their bank accounts but refused to haunt their hallways. Then the invitation arrived. It was not from them. It was for them. I had been nominated for the Chicago Business Journal's Young CFO of the Year award. It was a prestigious honor. It was the kind of recognition that people in my industry killed for. It meant that at 32 years old, I had climbed to the top of a mountain that most people spent their entire lives trying to find. The ceremony was a black tie gala at the Palmer House Hilton. It was going to be a night of crystal chandeliers and silk dresses and speeches about innovation and leadership. I bought 3 tickets, one for me, one for Brenda, one for Gary. I called them a month in advance. I did not text. I called because I wanted to hear their voices. I wanted to hear them promise. We will be there, Harper, Brenda had said. Her voice was bright and airy. It sounds fancy. I will need a new dress. Can we put it on the card? Yes, I said. Get a new dress. Just be there. We would not miss it. Gary added, "We are proud of you, kiddo. Proud." The word tasted like sugar. It dissolved quickly, but for a moment it was sweet. The night of the gala arrived. I wore a deep emerald green gown that I had bought with my own bonus money. It was tailored to perfection. I had my hair done in a sleek chignon. I wore diamond earrings that I had bought for myself on my 30th birthday. I arrived at the hotel early. The ballroom was breathtaking. The ceiling was a masterpiece of frescoes and gold leaf. The tables were set with white linens and towering floral arrangements of white hydrangeas and roses. I found table 12. It was near the front. It had a reserved sign on it with my name, Harper Vance. I sat down. I checked my phone. 6:30 in the evening. The ceremony started at 7. I waited. People started to fill the room. Men in tuxedos shaking hands, women in glittering gowns laughing and sipping champagne. My boss arrived. He was a stern man named Arthur who rarely smiled, but tonight he beamed at me. "Big night, Harper," he said. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Is the family coming?" "Yes," I said. I forced a smile. "They are on their way. Traffic is probably terrible." Arthur nodded. "Chicago traffic. It is a beast. See you up there." He walked away to his table. 6:45. I checked my phone again. No texts, no missed calls. I looked at the 2 empty chairs next to me. They looked like gaping mouths waiting to swallow my dignity. 7:00. The lights dimmed. The host walked onto the stage. He was a local news anchor with perfect teeth and a voice like melted butter. "Welcome, everyone," he boomed. "Tonight, we celebrate the visionaries." My phone buzzed in my clutch. I grabbed it. My heart leaped. It had to be them. Maybe they were in the lobby. Maybe they were lost. It was an Instagram notification. Tanner had posted to his story. My thumb hovered over the screen. A cold feeling started in my toes and worked its way up my legs. Why was Tanner posting now? Why was he not in the car with them or at home waiting for them to return? I tapped the screen. The video loaded. The sound was muted, but I could see the image clearly. It was our backyard, the backyard of the house on Elm Street, the house I paid for. There was smoke rising from the expensive gas grill I had bought Gary for Father's Day. There were red plastic cups scattered on the patio table. There were people, about 20 of them, mostly Tanner's friends, guys in hoodies and girls in crop tops. And there in the background holding a platter of burgers was Gary. He was wearing his lucky grilling apron. He was laughing. And there, holding a glass of wine and chatting with a girl in pink hair, was Brenda. She was wearing a casual sundress. She looked relaxed. She looked happy. I turned the volume up just a fraction. The sound of bass-heavy rap music thumped through the tiny speaker, then Tanner's voice shouting over the noise, "Yo, we did it, boys! 1,000 followers! The Titan is going global! Big moves tonight!" Fam came through with the celebration. Let us go. 1,000 followers. On Twitch. I stared at the screen. The video looped. Gary laughing. Brenda drinking. Tanner screaming. 1,000 followers on a platform where he played video games for 12-year-olds. And I was sitting at the Palmer House Hilton, about to receive an award for managing a $20 million merger. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. The people at the next table glanced at me. I walked out of the ballroom. I walked past the check-in desk. I walked into the quiet of the carpeted hallway near the restrooms. My hands were not shaking. They were stone still. I dialed Gary's number. He answered on the second ring. I could hear the music in the background. "Hey, Harper," he said. His voice was cheerful, a little too loud. "Where are you?" I asked. There was a pause. The music seemed to dip slightly as if he had stepped away or turned his back. "Oh, hey. Yeah, we got held up. Something came up at the last minute." "You are at a barbecue," I said. "I am watching Tanner's story right now, Dad. You are grilling burgers." Gary sighed. It was the sigh of a man who was annoyed that he had to explain simple physics to a child. "Look, Harper, do not start. It is a big night for your brother. He hit a milestone, 1,000 followers. That is a lot of people. He has been working really hard at this streaming thing. He needed a win. He was feeling really down about the job hunt, and we wanted to boost his morale. You promised, I said. My voice was a whisper. You promised a month ago. I bought you a ticket. I bought Mom a dress. We know. We know. But Tanner decided to do this last minute. He was so excited. We could not just leave him here alone with his friends. It would have looked bad. We have to support him. He is fragile right now, Harper. You know how he gets. He is 28 years old, I said. He is not a child. Gary's voice hardened. It lost the cheerful edge. Stop being so selfish, Harper. God, you are relentless. You are sitting there in a fancy hotel with your rich friends drinking champagne. You are fine. You have everything. Your brother has nothing. He needs us right now. Your award is just a piece of paper. You can pick it up any time. It is not going anywhere. Just a piece of paper. 7 years of university, 3 years of internship, 80-hour work weeks, missed holidays, sleepless nights, the relentless crushing pressure to be perfect so that I could afford to keep them safe. Just a piece of paper. Do not ruin the night, Harper, Gary said. Do not be dramatic. We will celebrate with you later. Maybe next weekend. We can order pizza. Just let Tanner have his moment. He hung up. I stood in the hallway holding the phone. The dial tone hummed in my ear. Just let Tanner have his moment. Tanner had been having his moment for 28 years. Every moment was Tanner's moment. I looked at my reflection in the mirror on the wall. The emerald dress, the diamonds, the hair. I looked like a success. I looked like a woman who had it all. But inside the chest of the woman in the mirror, something snapped. It was not a loud snap. It was not a violent break. It was a quiet mechanical click. It was the sound of a switch flipping from on to off. I had spent my entire life trying to buy their love. I thought that if I was good enough or rich enough or successful enough, they would finally look at me and see me. I thought that if I solved all their problems, they would finally have the space to love me. But they did not want to love me. They wanted to use me. I was not a daughter. I was an appliance. I was a toaster. I was a dishwasher. I was an ATM machine in the lobby of their lives. You walk up to it when you need cash. You punch in the code. You take what you need. You do not thank the machine. You do not invite the machine to dinner. You do not love the machine. And when the machine asks for something in return, you kick it. I walked back into the ballroom. The host was speaking. And now for our final award of the evening, the Young CFO of the Year. This individual has shown remarkable leadership in navigating complex mergers and driving fiscal growth. Please welcome Harper Vance. The room erupted in applause. The sound washed over me. I walked up the stairs to the stage. The lights were blinding. I could not see the empty chairs at table 12 anymore. I could only see the white-hot glare of the spotlights. I took the crystal trophy from the host. It was heavy. It was cool to the touch. I stood at the podium. I looked out at the sea of strangers. 500 people clapping for me. I leaned into the microphone. "Thank you," I said. My voice was steady. It did not waver. I want to thank my mentors. I want to thank my team. Hard work is often solitary. We tell ourselves that we do it for the people we love. But tonight, I realized something important. I paused. The room went silent. I realized that success is not about who is watching you from the front row. It is about who you see when you look in the mirror. Thank you. I walked off the stage. I did not go back to my table. I kept walking. I walked out the side exit. I walked through the kitchen where the staff was scraping plates. I walked out into the alley behind the hotel where the valet was waiting. I handed him my ticket. "It is just a piece of paper," Gary had said. I looked at the crystal award in my hand. It was sharp. It was clear. It was solid. I took my phone out of my purse. I opened my banking app. I looked at the scheduled transfers. Mortgage, $3,200, scheduled for the 1st. Car lease, $980, scheduled for the 5th. Credit card auto pay, full balance, scheduled for the 15th. I did not cry. I did not feel sad. I felt like a CEO looking at a failing division of a company, a division that had been bleeding capital for decades with zero projected growth. You cut the dead weight. That is what business school taught me. You stop the bleeding. I tapped the screen. Cancel transfer. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment? The app asked. Yes. Cancel transfer. Yes. Cancel transfer. Yes. I went through the list. Utilities, insurance, cell phone plan, streaming services, country club dues. I deleted them all, one by one. The valet pulled my car up. It was still the beat-up sedan because I had not bought myself a new one yet. I had been saving for their anniversary cruise. I got into the car. I set the trophy on the passenger seat where Brenda should have been. I drove toward the lake. The city skyline was beautiful at night. It was a grid of lights and possibilities. I took a deep breath. The air in the car felt different. It felt lighter. The ATM was out of order. The janitor had quit. The ghost was leaving the machine. I drove past the turnoff for the suburbs. I drove past the exit that would take me to the house with the barbecue and the smoke and the lies. I kept driving. I was hungry. I realized I had not eaten the $200 plate of food at the gala. I pulled into a 24-hour diner. I sat in a booth by myself. I ordered a burger and fries. I ate it slowly. It was the best burger I had ever tasted. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tanner. Yo, Harper, Dad said you are mad. Chill out. The burgers were fire. You missed out. Congrats on your paper thing or whatever. Can you transfer me $50? I need to buy some skins for the stream celebration. I looked at the message. I looked at the delete button. I blocked the number. Then I blocked Gary. Then I blocked Brenda. I finished my fries. I paid the bill. I tipped the waitress 50% because she smiled at me and filled my water without being asked. I walked back to my car. The night was cold, but I was not freezing anymore. I was on fire, and I was ready to watch them burn. Silence is a heavy weapon. Most people do not know how to wield it. They use it as a shield to hide behind when they are hurt, or they use it as a passive-aggressive punishment that lasts for a few hours. I had used silence that way my whole life. I had bitten my tongue. I had swallowed my words. I had hidden in my room. But the silence that descended on me after the gala was different. It was not a shield. It was a scalpel. I did not go to work on Monday. I called my assistant and told her to clear my calendar for 2 days. I told her it was a personal emergency. In the corporate world, a personal emergency usually meant a death in the family. In a way, it was. I drove to the financial district. I parked my car in the underground garage of a glass tower that scraped the gray Chicago sky. I took the elevator to the 42nd floor. The receptionist at the law firm of Sterling and Moss knew me. She smiled and buzzed me through. Morgan was waiting for me in her corner office. She was my oldest friend. We had met in college during a freshman economics class where we were the only 2 girls in the front row. Morgan was sharp and lethal, and she had a heart made of Kevlar. She was a forensic accountant who had transitioned into family law. She destroyed cheating husbands and hidden assets for a living. She took one look at my face and closed the door. She did not ask if I was okay. She pointed to the leather chair opposite her desk. "Sit down, Harper," she said. "You look like you are about to murder someone, or like you just buried a body." I sat. I placed my laptop on her mahogany desk. "I need an audit," I said. My voice was calm. It sounded strange to my own ears. It lacked the tremor of apology that usually accompanied my requests. Morgan raised an eyebrow. "An audit of what?" "The merger project." "No," I said. "An audit of me. An audit of the Bank of Harper. I want to see everything, Morgan. I want to see every transaction, every withdrawal, every supplementary card charge, every medical bill. I want to go back 5 years." Morgan looked at me for a long moment. She saw the emerald green nail polish chipped from where I had gripped the steering wheel too tight. She saw the dark circles under my eyes that makeup could not hide. She opened her laptop. "Give me the access codes," she said. We spent 6 hours in that office. We ordered coffee that tasted like battery acid. We ordered sandwiches that went uneaten. Morgan projected my financial life onto the smart screen on the wall. It was an autopsy of my own stupidity. For years, I had avoided looking too closely. I paid the bills because I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped. I paid them blindly. I told myself that the $2,000 credit card bill was just groceries and gas. I told myself that the medical bills were necessary. But numbers do not lie. Numbers are cold and binary and honest. Morgan scrolled through the credit card statement from last November. "Stop," I said. I pointed at a line item. Hermes Paris, $12,400. I remembered that bag. Brenda had worn it to Thanksgiving dinner. It was a Birkin. Orange leather, gold hardware. I had complimented her on it. "Oh, this old thing," she had laughed. "I got it on a trip to the city with your aunt. We found this little shop that sells high-quality replicas. It is a fake Harper. Can you believe it? It cost me $200. It looks so real though, right?" I stared at the screen. $12,400. It was not a replica. It was real. She had bought it on the supplementary American Express card I gave her for emergencies. She lied to my face. I whispered. She told me it was $200. Morgan clicked on the transaction details. It was signed for by Brenda Vance. Morgan did not say anything. She just highlighted the row in red. She kept scrolling. Pinehurst Resort, $4,000. The Greenbrier, $6,000. Pebble Beach, $3,000. These were charged to the Medical Flex spending account I shared with Gary. He had told me he needed spinal decompression therapy for his chronic back pain. He told me the insurance did not cover the specialists. He told me he was going to a wellness clinic in Arizona for treatment. He was playing golf. He was staying at 5-star resorts and playing 18 holes a day while I sat in my office and worried about his lumbar vertebrae. I felt a laugh bubbling up in my chest. It was the same dry, jagged laugh from the night of the bail. "He has a bad back," I said. "My father has a bad back, Morgan. He can barely walk to the mailbox." "He seems to walk fine on the fairway," Morgan said dryly. She highlighted the rows in red. The list went on. Tanner's online courses in digital marketing, $2,000. The merchant code was for a high-end gaming equipment store. Groceries, Whole Foods, $400 a week. I looked at the itemized receipts Morgan pulled up. Wagyu beef, imported truffles, Dom Perignon champagne. They were eating better than I was. I was eating frozen dinners and sandwiches while they were feasting on my salary. Morgan turned off the screen. The room plunged back into the gray afternoon light. "The total," she said softly. "Over the last 5 years. Do you want to know?" "Yes," I said. $340,000. The number hung in the air. $340,000. That was a house. That was a retirement fund. That was a life. That was the price of my admission into a family that did not want me. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked down at the tiny cars crawling like ants on the street below. I felt sick, but it was a clarifying sickness. It was the nausea that comes before the fever breaks. "Do it," I said. Morgan typed on her keyboard. "Do what, Harper? Cut the cord," I said. "I want you to draft the legal separation of assets. I want my name off the deed to the house. I want my name off the car lease. I want the supplementary cards canceled. I want the medical access revoked." Morgan nodded. "That will take a few days to process legally, but we can stop the cash flow today." I sat back down. I pulled out my phone. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not call Brenda to ask why she bought a $12,000 bag while I was wearing a coat with a hole in the pocket. I opened the banking app. I felt like a surgeon standing over a patient with a gangrenous limb. There is no time for sentiment. There is only the amputation. Click. Electric company. Autopay canceled. Click. Water department. Autopay canceled. Click. Gas company. Autopay canceled. Click. Internet service provider. Autopay canceled. I moved to the entertainment. Netflix. Password change. Log out of all devices. Hulu. Password change. Log out of all devices. Spotify. Password change. Log out of all devices. Amazon Prime. Password change. Log out of all devices. I imagined Tanner sitting in the basement. He would be in the middle of a game or a movie. Suddenly the screen would go black. He would click the remote. He would yell for Brenda. "Mom, the internet is down." Brenda would try to check her phone. She would see that the Wi-Fi was disconnected. She would switch to data. She would try to log into her bank account to see if the bill was paid. Access denied. I canceled the supplementary credit cards. American Express. Stolen or lost. Please issue new card with new number to primary cardholder only. Visa. Stolen or lost. Please issue new card with new number to primary cardholder only. The plastic rectangles in their wallets were now just useless scraps of PVC. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It was lightness. It was the feeling of dropping a heavy backpack after hiking for 20 miles. Morgan watched me. She did not interfere. She knew that this was something I had to do myself. When I was done, I looked at her. "Is that everything?" I asked. Morgan tapped her pen on the desk. "You need to tell them, Harper. You cannot just ghost them financially. They need notice. Legally, it protects you from claims of abandonment if you ever get dragged into court for elder care support." I nodded. I opened my email client. I typed in 3 addresses: Brenda Vance, Gary Vance, Tanner Vance. I did not write, "Dear Mom and Dad." I did not write, "I am sorry, but I have to do this." I did not write a long emotional letter explaining my pain and my betrayal and my broken heart. I wrote it like a CFO issuing a press release about a discontinued product line. Subject: Notice of financial restructuring. To whom it may concern. Effective immediately, all financial assistance provided by Harper Vance has been terminated. This includes but is not limited to mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance premiums, vehicle leases, credit card payments, and medical expenses. All automatic payments have been canceled. All supplementary credit cards have been deactivated. All subscription services have been revoked. You are responsible for the full balance of all accounts associated with your names and the property at Elm Street. Please make the necessary arrangements to assume these liabilities within the next billing cycle. The financial support system mangled by the entity known as the family is now under permanent maintenance. Do not reply to this email. This inbox is no longer monitored. Regards. Harper Vance. I read it over. It was cold. It was brutal. It was perfect. It was the receipt they deserved. I looked at Morgan. "Read this," I said. She read it. A slow smile spread across her face. It was a shark smile. "Permanent maintenance," she said. "That is poetry, Harper." I hit send. The swoosh sound of the email leaving my outbox was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It was better than applause. It was better than a symphony. It was the sound of a bridge burning. I stood up and gathered my things. "Thank you, Morgan," I said. "Send me the bill." Morgan shook her head. "Pro bono," she said. "Watching you finally grow a spine is payment enough. Now go home, turn off your phone, and buy yourself a nice bottle of wine." I walked to the elevator. I walked to my car. I drove out of the garage and merged into the traffic. It was 5:00. The sun was setting over the city. The sky was a bruised purple. My phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again. Then it started to vibrate continuously like an angry hornet in my purse. I did not look at it. I knew what it was. It was the panic. It was the realization. It was the chaos. They were in the dark now. The lights had gone out. The money tap had run dry. For the first time in my life, I was not rushing to fix it. I was not reaching for my wallet. I was not apologizing. I turned on the radio. I found a station playing loud rock music. I turned the volume up until the bass rattled the windows of my old sedan. I drove home to my small apartment. I unlocked the door. I turned on the light. It turned on instantly. Because I paid the bill, I opened my fridge. There was food inside because I paid for it. I sat on my couch. I looked at my phone one last time before I turned it off completely. 36 missed calls, 42 text messages. "Brenda, Harper, what is going on?" The card was declined at the grocery store. It was embarrassing. "Call me now." "Gary, the TV is not working." "Did you change the password?" "Stop playing games, Harper." "Tanner, yo, the internet is dead. I am in the middle of a stream. Fix it." I smiled. I pressed the power button on the side of the phone. I held it down until the screen went black. The silence returned. But this time, it was not lonely. It was victorious. I went to the kitchen and opened a bottle of wine. It was a cheap Merlot, but tonight it tasted like vintage Bordeaux. I toasted the empty room to permanent maintenance, I whispered, and I took a sip. The first week of the new regime was deceptively quiet. It was the silence of a house where the termites are eating the beams, but the roof has not yet collapsed. I went to work. I sat in my office. I drank coffee that I paid for with my own money. I checked my bank account 3 times a day just to look at the number. It was not going down. For the first time in 10 years, the number was static. It sat there like a loyal dog that had finally stopped running away. Then the rot began to smell. It started with Tanner. Of course it started with Tanner. I had blocked their cell phones, but I had forgotten to block the main line at my office. On Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, my receptionist buzzed me. "Harper," she said. Her voice was hesitant. "There is a man on line 2. He says it is an emergency regarding a security breach. He says he is your brother." I sighed. I picked up the receiver. "This is Harper." "You witch!" Tanner screamed. The sound was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "You actually did it. You canceled the subscription. Do you know what you just did?" I assumed he was talking about the electricity or the water or the mortgage. "I lost my diamond tier status," he yelled. "Do you hear me?" Diamond tier. I have had that status for 3 years. The payment bounced, Harper. It bounced this morning. I logged in and my badge is gone. My skins are locked. My followers are laughing at me in the chat. They are asking if I am broke. I took a sip of my coffee. It was warm. It was bitter. It was delicious. "You are broke, Tanner," I said calmly. "You have $0. That is the definition of broke." "Fix it," he demanded. "Put the card back on file right now. I have a tournament tonight. If I show up without my badge, I look like a noob. You are ruining my brand. Your brand is a hallucination," I said. "Get a job, Tanner." I hung up. I told the receptionist to block that number and any future calls from my family. That was the first crack. It was small. It was petty. It was ridiculous. But it showed exactly where their priorities lay. Tanner did not call because he was worried about groceries. He called because he lost a digital badge that meant nothing in the real world. 2 weeks later, the rot went deeper. I was sitting in my apartment on a Tuesday evening reading a book. It was a novel I had bought at a bookstore without looking at the price tag. The lamp next to me cast a warm golden glow over the pages. The heater hummed softly. My phone vibrated on the coffee table. It was not a call. It was an email notification. I had set up a filter to send all their emails to a folder marked trash, but I still received the notifications. The subject line caught my eye. "You are trying to kill us." It was from Brenda. Curiosity is a dangerous thing, but I opened it. "Harper," the email read. The lights just went out. "The refrigerator is off. The heater is off. It is 50 degrees outside. Your father is sitting in the dark, wrapped in a blanket. He is shivering. How could you do this? You are trying to kill him. You know his health is fragile. You know he needs warmth for his back. This is elder abuse. I am going to call the police. Turn it back on immediately. You are a monster." I looked at the thermostat on my wall. It read 72 degrees. I looked at the email again. Elder abuse. For years they had abused my finances. They had abused my kindness. They had abused my desire to be loved. They had watched me shiver in the woods when I was 16 years old and told me it was a lesson. Now the lesson had come home to roost. I did not reply. I did not call the power company. I did not rush over with a check. Instead, I opened my banking app. I transferred $500 to my savings account. It was the money that would have paid their electric bill. I closed the app. I went to my closet and pulled out my winter coat, the one with the hole in the pocket. I looked at it for a moment, then I threw it in the trash. I went online and bought a new coat, a cashmere wool blend in a soft camel color. It cost $400. It was beautiful, it was warm, and it was mine. 3 weeks into the silence, the denial began to fracture. They did not believe I was serious. They thought this was a tantrum. They thought I was just being dramatic Harper again. They thought if they screamed loud enough or waited long enough, I would crack. They sent messages from burner phones. I read them like I was reading graffiti on a bathroom wall. You are ungrateful. You are selfish. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us. You think you are better than us just because you have a fancy job. God will punish you for abandoning your family. They threw every insult they could find against the wall, hoping one would stick, hoping one would trigger the guilt that had controlled me for decades. But the guilt was gone. It had been burned away by the sight of my father laughing at a barbecue while I stood alone on a stage. 1 month passed, the 30-day mark. This was the deadline I had given them in my email, the deadline to assume liability, the deadline to wake up. They had slept through it. On a Friday afternoon, I received a notification from the bank holding the lease on the SUV. It was a standard automated message sent to the primary account holder. Subject: Notice of repossession. Due to non-payment and failure to communicate regarding the outstanding balance, the vehicle identified as the Porsche Cayenne has been scheduled for involuntary repossession. I smiled. I imagined the scene. It would be early morning, or maybe late at night. The tow truck would pull up to the house on Elm Street, the house that was currently dark and cold. Tanner would be asleep or maybe sitting in the dark trying to play games on his phone data. They would hook up the black beast, the safe space, the symbol of Tanner's imaginary success. They would drag it away. I did not have to lift a finger. I did not have to drive the tow truck. I just had to step out of the way and let gravity do its work. That weekend, I did something I had never done before. I took a vacation. It was not a trip to Europe. It was just a weekend at a spa resort 2 hours north of the city. I booked a suite with a fireplace. I booked a massage. I booked a facial. I sat in the hot tub overlooking the lake. The water was hot. The air was cool. For years I had told people I was broke. I had turned down dinner invitations. I had worn old clothes. I had skipped vacations. I looked at the steam rising from the water. I was not broke. I had never been broke. I was a high earner who had been the victim of a long con. I had been robbed in slow motion by the people who were supposed to protect me. Now the robbery was over. I checked my phone one last time before locking it in the safe. There was a new email in the trash folder. It was from Gary. Harper, it said. They took the car. They took Tanner's car. He is crying in his room. The neighbors saw it. Everyone saw it. You have humiliated us. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? To destroy your own family over a few missed payments? We are your flesh and blood. Fix this. Bring the car back. We can forgive you if you fix this today. We can forgive you. The audacity was breathtaking. It was a monument to narcissism so tall it scraped the stratosphere. They wanted to forgive me for stopping them from stealing my money. I laughed. A woman sitting across the hot tub looked at me. "Good news?" she asked. I looked at her. She had kind eyes. "Yes," I said. "I just realized I lost 300 pounds of dead weight." She smiled. "Dieting is hard," she said. I leaned back and closed my eyes. "You have no idea," I said. The rot was spreading. The house was dark. The car was gone. The internet was dead. And I was just getting started. When a parasite is forcibly removed from its host, it does not simply let go and die quietly. It thrashes. It bites. It releases toxins into the bloodstream in a desperate attempt to reattach itself. My mother was not a biologist, but she understood this survival mechanism perfectly. When the money stopped flowing, she did not reflect on her choices. She did not look inward. She looked for a way to infect my life from the outside. The smear campaign began on a Wednesday. It started digitally. I had blocked Brenda on my phone, but I had not blocked the dozens of flying monkeys she recruited from her social circle. I received a screenshot from a cousin I had not spoken to in 5 years. It was a post from Brenda's Facebook page. The post was a masterpiece of vague booking and manufactured tragedy. "Please pray for our family." It read, "We are going through a dark time. Our daughter Harper is battling demons we can no longer hide. Addiction is a terrible disease. We tried to help her. We tried to save her from herself. But she has cut us off and chosen a path of destruction. We fear for her life. Cha-cha, pray for Harper. Addiction awareness, ha-cha, heartbroken." I stared at the screen. Addiction. That was the narrative she chose. It was brilliant in a sick, twisted way. It explained everything. It explained why I had cut contact. It explained why the money had stopped. It explained why I looked so tired in the few photos she had of me. It painted her as the martyr mother trying to save her junkie daughter. It was a lie so bold it took my breath away. The only thing I was addicted to was paying their bills. By Friday, the story had evolved. According to the grapevine at the local church, I was not just on drugs. I was also under the influence of a predatory older man named Julian. There was no Julian. I was single. I spent my nights reading books and drinking tea. But in Brenda's version of reality, Julian was a con artist who had brainwashed me. He had forced me to drain my bank accounts. He had forced me to sell my car. He was the reason I had abandoned my poor sick father who was shivering in the dark. It would have been funny if it stayed in the suburbs, but lies like that do not stay contained. They seep. They spread like black mold. On Monday morning, my boss, Arthur, called me into his office. Arthur was a man of few words. He valued efficiency and discretion above all else. He looked uncomfortable. "Sit down, Harper," he said. I sat. I folded my hands in my lap. "We received a call this morning," Arthur said. He did not look at me. He looked at a file on his desk. It was from a woman claiming to be your mother. She was very emotional. "She told our receptionist that you are in a crisis. She said you are unstable. She asked if we have noticed any erratic behavior or missing funds." I felt the blood drain from my face. It was not shame. It was a cold fury that started in my marrow. "She called my job. She tried to sabotage the career that paid for the house she was living in. I am sorry you had to deal with that, Arthur," I said. My voice was steady. It sounded like it belonged to someone else. "My mother is going through a severe mental health crisis. She is lashing out because I have had to set financial boundaries. There is no addiction. There is no instability. There is only a cut credit card." Arthur looked at me. He saw the tailored suit. He saw the clear eyes. He saw the young CFO of the Year trophy sitting on the shelf behind his desk. "I believe you," he said. "But Harper, you need to handle this. We cannot have hysterical relatives calling the switchboard. It looks bad." "I will handle it," I promised. I did not know that I would have to handle it less than 24 hours later. It happened on Tuesday morning. I was in a meeting with the audit committee. We were discussing third-quarter projections. My phone was in my office. My assistant knocked on the glass door of the conference room. Her face was pale. "Harper," she whispered. "You need to come to the lobby, now." I excused myself. I walked to the elevator. My heels clicked on the marble floor. I pressed the button for the lobby. When the doors opened, I heard her before I saw her. "Please," she was sobbing. "I just need to see my daughter. I know she is here. I know she is sick. Please let me save her." I stepped out of the elevator. The lobby of my building was a cavernous space of glass and steel. It was designed to intimidate. It was designed to project power. And there, in the center of the atrium, was Brenda. She was not wearing her usual designer clothes. She was wearing an old coat I had never seen before. Her hair was messy. She was not wearing makeup. She looked like a woman on the edge of a breakdown. It was a costume. It was a performance tailored for maximum sympathy. She was clinging to the reception desk. The young receptionist looked terrified. 2 security guards were standing nearby, looking unsure of whether to touch a crying middle-aged woman. "Mom," I said. My voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise like a whip. Brenda spun around. When she saw me, her face crumpled into a mask of theatrical agony. "Harper!" she screamed. "Oh, thank God! Look at you! You look terrible! You are so thin! What is he doing to you?" She lunged toward me. She opened her arms as if to embrace me, as if to save me. I did not move. I did not flinch. I just held up one hand. "Stop!" I said. She stopped. She blinked. She was not used to being commanded. "Come home, Harper," she pleaded. Her voice echoed off the glass walls. People in suits were stopping to watch. "Dad is so sick. He needs his medicine. But we do not care about the money. We just want you off the drugs. We want our little girl back. Please let us help you." It was a brilliant speech. If I were an onlooker, I would have believed her. I would have seen a desperate mother trying to rescue her fallen child. But I was not an onlooker. I was the target. I looked at the receptionist. I looked at the security guards. I looked at the clients waiting by the elevators. I could have tried to argue. I could have screamed that she was lying. I could have caused a scene. But that is what Tanner would do. That is what Brenda would do. I was not them. I turned to the lead security guard. His name was Marcus. I greeted him every morning. "Marcus," I said. "Yes, Ms. Vance." He stepped forward. "This woman is trespassing," I said. My voice was calm. It was conversational. It was the voice I used to order coffee. Brenda gasped. "Harper, I am your mother." "No," I said. I looked directly at her. I looked into her teary eyes and saw the panic rising behind them. She realized the script was not working. "You are not a mother," I said. "A mother protects her child. A mother does not leave her 16-year-old daughter alone in the Rocky Mountains with a pocket knife because she did not want to hear her talk." The lobby went silent. The receptionist stopped typing. The client stopped whispering. Brenda froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I took a step closer to her. I lowered my voice so only she and Marcus could hear. "I remember the note, Mom," I said. "If she wants to survive, she will figure it out. Do not coddle her." Brenda went pale. The color drained from her face faster than water from a cracked tub. She thought I had forgotten. She thought I had buried that memory under layers of money and obedience. "I figured it out," I said. "I survived. And now I am surviving you." I turned back to Marcus. "Please remove this woman from the building," I said. "If she returns, call the police and file a report for harassment. She is not a relative. She is a stranger who used to know me." Marcus nodded. He looked at Brenda with a new expression. It was not pity. It was disgust. "Ma'am," Marcus said. He took her arm. "You need to leave. Now." Brenda looked at me. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She was not looking at her daughter. She was looking at a stranger. She was looking at a wall she could not climb and a door she could not kick down. She did not scream. She did not fight. The air had gone out of her performance. She let Marcus lead her toward the revolving doors. She looked back once. I did not look away. I stood there in my tailored suit and watched her disappear onto the street. I turned to the receptionist. "I apologize for the disruption," I said. "Please let Arthur know the situation has been handled." I walked back to the elevator. I pressed the button for the 42nd floor. My hands were still steady. My heart was beating a slow, strong rhythm. They tried to smear me with mud. They did not realize that rain only makes the stone shine brighter. I went back to my office. I sat at my desk. I opened the spreadsheet for the third quarter projections. I worked until 6:00. I was not addicted to drugs. I was not unstable. I was not lost. I was free. And Brenda knew it. 6 months is a long time in the world of finance. In 6 months, a market can crash. A fortune can be built. A company can go bankrupt. In the 6 months since I cut the financial cord, my own life had flourished. My savings account had grown by $24,000. My skin was clear. My sleep was deep and dreamless. I had met a man named Julian who was actually real, and he was a kind architect who thought my obsession with spreadsheets was charming. But 6 months in the world of a narcissist is an eternity of starvation. I knew they were drowning. I knew it because the grapevine in our suburb is faster than fiber optic internet. I heard from my aunt that they had sold the lake house. I heard from a former neighbor that Tanner was trying to sell his sneaker collection online. I heard that Gary was trying to get a loan from his old college roommate. They were sinking. Logic dictated that they should downsize. They should sell the big house on Elm Street. They should get jobs. They should retreat and lick their wounds. But a dying star does not fade away quietly. It goes supernova. The invitation arrived on a rainy Tuesday in November. It was heavy. The envelope was made of cream-colored cardstock that felt like fabric. My name was written in calligraphy with gold ink. Ms. Harper Vance. I opened it. Inside was a formal invitation to the 35th Wedding Anniversary Gala of Gary and Brenda Vance. It was to be held at the Sovereign Hotel. It was the most expensive venue in the city. The kind of place where a glass of water cost $12 and the air smelled of old money and desperate pretension. I stared at the card. They were broke. Their car had been repossessed. Their utilities had been cut off at least once. Yet they were throwing a party that would cost at least $50,000. It was a trap. It was a classic bait and switch. They were investing their last pennies or perhaps taking out a predatory loan to create an illusion of wealth. They needed to lure in new investors. They needed to find a new host for their parasite. They needed to show the world that the Vance family was still royalty, and they needed me. Tucked inside the heavy cardstock was a handwritten note on Brenda's personal stationery. Harper, we are willing to put the past behind us. We are ready to be a family again. If you attend this party and show proper respect, we will forgive you for your behavior. This is your chance to make amends. Do not embarrass us. This is a big night for your brother. He has a new business venture to announce. Come home, Mom and Dad. I read the note twice. We will forgive you. They wanted to forgive me for stopping them from stealing my retirement fund. They wanted to forgive me for refusing to let them abuse me. I sat at my kitchen island and tapped the card against the granite. A normal person would throw this in the trash. A normal person would stay home and watch a movie and let them drown in their own champagne. But I was not feeling normal. I was feeling surgical. If I did not go, they would spin the story. They would tell the guests that poor Harper was in rehab. They would tell the investors that I was unstable, but that the family money was safe. They would use my absence to paint a picture of a tragic but wealthy family weathering a storm. If I went, I could control the narrative. I picked up my phone and called Morgan. Are you busy on Saturday night? I asked. Morgan laughed. For you, I'm always free. What are we doing? We are going to a party, I said, and we are bringing a gift. I went shopping the next day. I did not look at the price tags. I went to a boutique on Michigan Avenue that sold couture. I found the dress in the back. It was black silk. It was floor length. It had long sleeves and a high neck, but the back was completely open. It was elegant. It was severe. It was the kind of dress a woman wears to the funeral of a billionaire husband she secretly despised. It was perfect. Saturday night arrived. The rain had stopped, but the air was cold. I put on the dress. I put on my diamond earrings. I painted my lips a deep blood red. I picked up the gift I had prepared. It was not a toaster. It was not a crystal vase. It was a thick, leather-bound portfolio. Inside were 50 pages of color-printed spreadsheets, bank statements, credit card receipts, emails, the foreclosure notice I had found in public records, the repossession order for the SUV. It was the receipt of their life. Morgan picked me up in her town car. She was wearing a sharp navy suit that looked like armor. Ready? She asked. I touched the leather portfolio in my lap. Let us go, I said. The Sovereign Hotel was glowing with lights. Valets were running back and forth, parking luxury cars. I saw a few familiar faces from the neighborhood, people who had looked at me with pity when Brenda spread her rumors. We walked into the grand ballroom. It was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like frozen tears. A jazz band was playing soft music. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne. And there, in the center of the room, stood my family. They looked impeccable from a distance. Gary was in a tuxedo. Brenda was wearing a gold sequined gown that glittered under the lights. Tanner was wearing a suit that I recognized. It was a Tom Ford suit I had bought him for a job interview 3 years ago, an interview he never attended. But as I walked closer, I saw the cracks. Gary was sweating. His eyes were darting around the room as if he was looking for an exit. Brenda's smile was too wide. It was stretched so tight it looked painful. Tanner was drinking whiskey with a desperation that shook his hand. They were terrified. They were standing on a trap door and they knew the latch was loose. Brenda saw me first. Her eyes widened. She took in the black dress. She took in the diamonds. She took in the way I held my head high. She excused herself from a group of wealthy doctors and rushed toward me. "Harper," she hissed. Her voice was low, but the fake smile remained plastered on her face. "You actually came. You invited me," I said. I smoothed the silk of my dress. Brenda looked at the portfolio in my hand. "Is that a gift?" "Yes," I said. "It is for the anniversary." She relaxed slightly. She thought I had capitulated. She thought I was there to beg for forgiveness with a check in my hand. "Good," she said. "You look expensive." "That is good. We have some very important people here tonight. Mr. Henderson from the venture capital firm is here. Tanner is pitching him a new app idea." "Do not mess this up, Harper. Just smile and nod. If anyone asks, you are doing much better, and you are supporting the family business." Supporting the family business. I looked at her. "I am not supporting anything, Mom," I said. "I am here to witness the milestone. 35 years. It is a long time to build a house of cards." Brenda's eyes narrowed. "Do not start with your cryptic nonsense. Just go get a drink and stay out of the way until the speeches. We are announcing the new investment fund during the toast." She turned and walked back to the doctors. She laughed a high tinkling laugh that sounded like breaking glass. I watched her go. Morgan stepped up beside me. "She thinks you are back in the fold," Morgan whispered. "She thinks money is gravity," I said. "She thinks everything eventually falls back into her pockets." I looked at the stage at the front of the room. There was a microphone. There was a projector screen currently displaying a slideshow of photos. Gary and Brenda on their wedding day, Gary and Brenda in Hawaii, Gary and Brenda in front of the house I paid for. It was a curated history of lies. I gripped the leather portfolio. "Tonight," I whispered, "we correct the record." The jazz band stopped playing. The room quieted. Gary tapped a spoon against a champagne glass. The sound rang out clear and sharp. "Welcome, friends," he boomed. His voice shook slightly. "Welcome to our celebration of love and legacy." I stepped forward. The black silk of my dress rippled like oil. I was not going to wait for the toast. I was going to serve the main course. The microphone squealed slightly as Brenda adjusted the stand. She stood in the center of the spotlight like a queen addressing her subjects. Her gold-sequined dress shimmered with every breath she took. She held a glass of champagne in one hand and a stack of cue cards in the other. Gary stood a few feet behind her. He had a frozen smile plastered on his face. He looked like a man who was waiting for a firing squad to assemble. 35 years, Brenda said. Her voice trembled with practiced emotion. 35 years of marriage is not just a number. It is a testament to resilience. It is a testament to sacrifice. Gary and I started with nothing but a dream. We built this life brick by brick. We built this family with love and with toil. She paused for effect. The crowd murmured appreciatively. "We have faced storms," she continued. She wiped a tear from her eye. "But we never broke. We sacrificed our own comfort to ensure our children had the world. We gave everything so that Tanner and Harper could fly. That is what love is. It is giving until you have nothing left to give." I stood in the shadows at the edge of the stage. Giving until you have nothing left. The audacity of the statement made my blood run cold. She was talking about sacrifice while wearing a dress bought with a credit card I had paid off. She was talking about resilience in a hotel ballroom rented with money borrowed against a house that was already in default. I looked at Morgan, who was standing near the tech booth. Morgan nodded once. It was time. I walked up the stairs to the stage. The click of my heels was loud on the wooden floor. The crowd turned to look. Brenda stopped speaking. Her eyes widened. She saw the leather portfolio in my hand. She saw the laptop bag slung over my shoulder. But then she smiled. It was a nervous, twitchy smile. She thought I was coming to join the tribute. She thought I was coming to validate her lies. "And here she is," Brenda announced, her voice pitched higher. "Our daughter Harper, the financial genius of the family. She must want to say a few words." She stepped back from the microphone. She gestured for me to take her place. "Make it good," she whispered as I passed her. "Do not embarrass us." I did not look at her. I stepped up to the podium. I placed my laptop on the lectern. I plugged the HDMI cable into the side port. The large projector screen behind us flickered. The slideshow of happy family photos vanished. The smiling faces of Gary and Brenda in Hawaii disappeared. In their place, a stark white spreadsheet appeared. The room went silent. The jazz band stopped playing. The waiters stopped pouring champagne. I leaned into the microphone. "My mother speaks of sacrifice," I said. My voice was calm and amplified. It echoed through the ballroom. She speaks of building a life brick by brick. I think it is important that we examine exactly who paid for those bricks. I pressed the spacebar. The first slide appeared. It was a high-resolution photo of the Porsche Cayenne, the black SUV that Tanner called his safe space. Next to the photo was a scanned copy of the lease agreement. My signature was at the bottom. Above the photo in bold red letters were the words, Asset 1, the vehicle. Underneath were the numbers, monthly lease payment, $980, insurance premium, $400, gas and maintenance, $600, total cost to Harper Vance, $47,520. And next to the financial breakdown was a second photo. It was a screenshot from a security camera at a gas station. It showed Tanner kicking the door of the Porsche because the pump was not working. Tanner drove this car, I said. He told you he was a successful entrepreneur. He told you he bought it with his earnings from digital marketing. I looked at Tanner. He was standing near the bar. His face was white. The truth is that Tanner has not earned a taxable dollar in 3 years. I paid for this car. I paid for the gas. I paid for the insurance. And when he was arrested for racing it 2 months ago, I paid the bail. The crowd gasped. A low murmur rippled through the room. Brenda stepped forward. "Harper!" she hissed. "What are you doing? Stop this now." I ignored her. I pressed the spacebar again. The second slide appeared. It was a split-screen image. On the left was a photo from Brenda's Facebook page. It showed Brenda and Gary sitting in first class on a flight to Paris. They were holding champagne flutes. The caption read, "Treat yourself. You earned it." On the right was a photo taken on the same day. It was a selfie I had taken in my kitchen. I was eating a cup of instant noodles. The background was my small apartment with the peeling paint I could not afford to fix. Above the images were the words, Asset 2, the lifestyle, first-class tickets to Paris, $12,000, Hotel George V, $8,000, shopping at Galeries Lafayette, $15,000, source of funds, emergency medical flex account of Harper Vance. My parents told me they needed money for my father's spinal treatments, I said. They told me he was in agony. They told me the specialists were in Europe. I looked at Gary. He was clutching the back of a chair. They took my money, the money I saved for my own home, and they went on a shopping spree. They bought handbags. They bought wine. They lived like royalty while I lived like a pauper to keep them alive. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Someone laughed nervously. It was a shocked sound. Brenda grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my skin. "You ungrateful little witch," she whispered. Her face was contorted with rage. "You are ruining everything. Turn it off." I pulled my arm away. I looked at her with ice in my veins. "I am not ruining anything, Mom," I said. "I am just auditing the books." I pressed the spacebar one last time. The final slide appeared. It was a document, a legal notice. It was stamped with the seal of the county clerk. Notice of foreclosure. The address was listed clearly, 142 Elm Street, the family home, the symbol of their success, outstanding balance, $340,000, status, default. The room was deadly silent. Every eye was glued to the screen. The image of the foreclosure notice was 20 feet tall. It loomed over my parents like a guillotine. "You stand here tonight in a rented ballroom and celebrate 35 years of success," I said. "But the truth is that you are homeless. You have not paid the mortgage in 6 months. The bank has initiated proceedings. The house of cards has fallen." Gary slumped. He looked like a balloon that had been punctured. "But there is good news," I said. I looked out at the crowd. I saw Mr. Henderson, the venture capitalist. He was frowning. He was putting his checkbook back into his pocket. I looked at the neighbors who had believed Brenda's lies about my addiction. They looked horrified. I looked at my parents. "I have a final announcement," I said. I pulled a document from my leather portfolio. I held it up. "As of this morning, the bank no longer owns the debt on the house at Elm Street. I purchased the distressed mortgage note. I am the new lien holder." Brenda looked up. Hope flickered in her eyes. A desperate, pathetic hope. "You bought the house," she breathed. "Oh, Harper, thank God. You saved us. I knew you would. I knew you loved us." She turned to the crowd. She tried to smile. "You see?" she stammered. "Our daughter. She is so generous. She bought the house to keep it in the family." I laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that echoed through the microphone. "I did not buy it to keep it in the family," I said. I looked directly at Brenda. "I bought it to evict you." The hope vanished from her face. It was replaced by pure terror. "You are standing in a party paid for by a credit card that I canceled yesterday," I said. "You are drinking champagne that you cannot afford, and you are living in a house that now belongs to me." I checked my watch. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises," I said. "I have hired a management company to handle the transition. If you are not out by the 1st of the month, the sheriff will remove you." Brenda stared at me. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. "Harper," Gary croaked, "you cannot do this. We are your parents." "You ceased to be my parents when you left me in the woods," I said. "You ceased to be my parents when you chose a barbecue over my doctorate. You ceased to be my parents when you tried to destroy my career with lies about addiction." I closed my laptop. The screen went black. The light vanished. I picked up my portfolio. "Happy anniversary," I said. I walked down the stairs. The silence in the room was physical. It was heavy and suffocating. No one moved. No one spoke. 500 people stood frozen in the wreckage of the Vance family reputation. I walked past Tanner. He was staring at the floor. He looked small. He looked like a child who had finally realized that the game was over. I walked past the table where the doctors were sitting. They looked away. They could not look me in the eye. I reached the double doors at the back of the room. Behind me I heard a thud. It was the sound of a body hitting the floor. Brenda had fainted. It might have been real. It might have been a performance. I did not turn around to check. I pushed the doors open. Morgan was waiting for me in the lobby. She was grinning. "That was brutal," she said. "It was necessary," I replied. We walked out into the night. The air was cold and clean. The valet brought my car. I got in. I did not look back at the hotel. I did not look back at the life I was leaving behind. I had the receipt, and it was paid in full. The fallout from the Sovereign Hotel was swift and absolute. In the suburbs, reputation is a currency more valuable than gold, and I had just caused a hyperinflation event that rendered the Vance family name worthless. The friends who had drunk their champagne and eaten their steaks evaporated into the night. They did not call to offer sympathy. They did not invite Brenda to brunch. They ghosted my parents with the same ruthless efficiency that I had ghosted their bank accounts. The foreclosure was finalized 30 days later. I did not extend the deadline. I did not offer a grace period. I treated them exactly like a bank would treat a delinquent tenant. The management company I hired handled the eviction. I was told it was a quiet affair. There were no screaming matches. There was just the shuffling of boxes and the quiet defeat of people who had finally run out of runway. They moved into a 2-bedroom rental apartment on the edge of the industrial district. It was a place with thin walls and laminate countertops that peeled at the edges. It was the kind of place Brenda used to drive past and lock her car doors. Now it was her sanctuary. Tanner was the first to break. The delusion of being a digital entrepreneur could not survive the reality of hunger. With no internet to stream and no allowance to buy fast food, he had to enter the workforce. He did not get a job in marketing. He did not get a job in tech. He got a job at a fulfillment warehouse 3 towns over. I saw him once from a distance. I was inspecting a facility for work, and I saw him walking to his car in the parking lot. He was wearing a high-visibility vest and steel-toed boots. He looked tired. He looked thinner. He was carrying a plastic lunchbox. He was finally learning the lesson I had learned at 16 years old. Survival is not a gift. It is something you earn with your hands and your sweat. As for me, I underwent a transformation of my own. 2 months after the gala, I stood in a courtroom downtown. It was a quiet morning. The judge was a woman with gray hair and a kind face. She reviewed my petition. "You wish to change your name," she stated. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "You wish to drop the surname Vance and adopt the surname Murphy. Is that correct?" "Yes," I said. "Murphy was my grandmother's name. She was the only person who ever saw me without asking for something in return." The judge stamped the paper. The sound echoed in the empty room. "So ordered," she said. "Congratulations, Ms. Murphy." I walked out of the courthouse and took a deep breath of the city air. Harper Vance was dead. She had died in a hotel ballroom under the weight of 1,000 expectations. Harper Murphy was alive, and she was free. I moved out of my small apartment. I bought a penthouse in the city with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the lake. It was a space filled with light. I filled it with furniture I chose. I filled it with books I wanted to read. I filled it with the silence of peace rather than the silence of suppression. My savings account grew. My investments flourished. I bought a new car. It was not a sensible sedan. It was a sleek silver convertible that hugged the curves of the road. 6 months after the eviction, I found myself driving back to the suburbs. I did not have a reason to go other than a lingering curiosity. I wanted to see the house on Elm Street one last time. I turned onto the familiar street. The trees were green and lush. The lawns were manicured. I pulled up to the house. It looked different. The shutters were painted a fresh, cheerful blue. The overgrown landscaping had been tamed. There was a sign on the front lawn, the Not a Mistake Project, a non-profit organization for at-risk youth. I had donated the house. I could have sold it for a profit, but I wanted to scrub the stain of my childhood from the foundation. I wanted to turn a place of neglect into a place of support. I wanted the rooms where I had felt invisible to be filled with kids who were finally being seen. I watched a group of teenagers walking out of the front door. They were laughing. They looked happy. Then I saw her. Brenda was walking down the sidewalk on the opposite side of the street. She was carrying 2 plastic grocery bags. She was wearing a faded coat that looked too big for her. Her hair was gray. The expensive dye job had grown out months ago. She walked with a stoop. She looked 20 years older than the woman who had stood on the stage at the Sovereign Hotel. She stopped. She looked across the street at the house she used to own. She looked at the sign. She looked at the happy teenagers. Then she looked at my car. I was sitting with the top down. The sun was shining on my face. I was wearing sunglasses, but I knew she could see me. For a moment, time stood still. I waited for the familiar spike of adrenaline. I waited for the guilt to claw at my throat. I waited for the urge to get out of the car and fix it. I waited for the need to run to her and hand her my credit card and beg for her love. But nothing came. There was no anger. There was no sadness. There was no guilt. There was only a vast, empty indifference. She looked like a stranger. She looked like a woman I might pass in a grocery store and forget 5 seconds later. She was just a person who had made a series of bad investments and was now living with the returns. Brenda took a step toward the curb. Her mouth opened. I could see her forming my name. She looked desperate. She looked like she was about to ask for a ride. She looked like she was about to ask for a second chance. I did not look away. But I did not smile. I simply pressed the button to roll up my window. The glass slid up smoothly. It created a barrier between me and the past. It muffled the sounds of the street. I put the car in drive. I did not speed away. I did not peel out. I drove away slowly and deliberately. I checked the rearview mirror once. Brenda was still standing on the curb. She was watching me go. She looked small. She looked like a ghost that had finally been exorcised. I turned the corner and she disappeared from view. I turned onto the highway and headed back toward the city. The sun was beginning to set over the skyline. It painted the buildings in shades of gold and violet. I thought about the 16-year-old girl shivering in the woods. I thought about the woman standing on the stage with a laptop. I thought about the janitor who had finally quit the job. I turned up the radio. The road ahead was wide and open. The receipt was kept. The debt was settled. And for the first time in my life, I was driving toward a destination that I had chosen for myself. We are often taught that family is a sanctuary, a bond that must be preserved at all costs. But sometimes holding on to people who consistently devalue you is not loyalty, it is self-destruction. The bravest thing you can do is realize that blood does not grant anyone a lifetime pass to break your spirit. True peace comes when you stop trying to buy love from those who only see you as a resource and start investing in yourself. Walking away is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of survival. You are allowed to be the villain in their story if it means being the hero in yours.